National Fire Radio.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. This week, the week of May 8th, all new episodes. 2 weeks ago, we had FDIC. We were on location. We shot a ton of content, worked on a bunch of projects with different manufacturers. It was an incredible week. And then the following week of May 1st, we kind of ran some reruns as well as content that was shot and podcasts that were recorded at FDIC with some great people. And so that was a lot of fun. That was last week's lineup. This week's lineup, though, we're back to it. All new episodes. And so sit back, enjoy. Thanks for joining us on the National Fire Radio podcast. Check out The Size Up by Robert Papero, our buddy Pip, the little guy with the mohawk. Every Tuesday is his episode, as well as the rest of the week is filled out with all new content and interviews with great guests that support the National Fire Radio community. Thanks for tuning in. Check it out this week. We appreciate you. And do me a favor, give us a half a second of your time and listen to the sponsors that help make National Fire Radio's podcast possible. Hey guys, before we start the podcast, real quick, I want to mention the Gone to Texas Fire Forum and Expo being held in Arlington, Texas on June 9th and 10th. Myself, I'm going to be emceeing the event for 2 days with nationally renowned speakers that will be there for the weekend. Mo Davis, Clyde Gordon, Rick George, Mickey Farrell, Jacob Johnson, Dennis Riley, and so on. The list goes on and on. I was there last year, helped MC the event last year. It is a growing conference in an incredible venue. Globe Life Field, which is home to the Texas Rangers in Arlington, Texas, right in the entertainment district, right at the PBR bar, which we're going to have a social after the first night. I'm telling you right now, there's no other venue like this. The room actually overlooks the field. You get to walk the stadium. It is such a cool venue. Arlington, Texas, June 9th and 10th. Check them out. Go on to TexasFireForum.com or go to Facebook and look them up there too. Go on to Texas Fire Forum where you can buy your tickets, get great hotel rates. And if anybody's asking you where you're going this summer, you tell them, go on to Texas. This episode's brought to you by Taylor's Tins. Taylor and his crew at Taylor's Tins have been manufacturing aluminum helmet fronts since 2017 with over 200,000 tins in the market. They are a leader in the helmet front space. Custom design, one-offs to department orders, they can turn them around within 24 to 48 hours. Customer service is what they pride themselves on, and they provide nothing but top-shelf product and service to their customers. Check them out at taylorstins.com and check out their full line of product offering. They've always been a very strong supporter since day one with the National Fire Radio podcast and platform, and Taylor and his crew have become dear friends of ours, and we appreciate the support. And at checkout, for a little extra bonus, use coupon code NFR Sent Me. That's NFR Sent Me for a discount on your order. Exclusions do apply. Anyway, check out taylorstins.com for the latest and greatest offerings from Taylor and his crew. And in the words of Taylor, stop burning up leather. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the National Fire Radio podcast. Today's going to be a lot of fun. This is a repeat guest, Captain Mark Gregory out of the FDNY. Mark, thanks for joining me, man.
Hey, Jeremy. How's everything, bro?
Everything's good. It was nice to bump into you on the streets of Indianapolis for literally a 45-second handshake and a hello. But it's always good to see you. You're always smiling, man. There's just something about you. You light up the room. It's an infectious conversation. Every time I talk to you, there's always smiles. You're always upbeat, and I love that about you, Cap.
No reason to be cranky, my man. Listen, you only come around this world once. You know, you got to enjoy yourself while you're here.
I think more people need to subscribe to that. What were you saying? We were saying before we started recording, right? It's like at the end of the day, like, you know, enjoy life while you're here because you don't know when your number's being pulled or life takes a big turn.
100%, my friend. Listen, you know, you take every day as a gift. I mean, look at how many of our friends have, gone to work and expecting to have, a great time, go to a fire, and then, things go the opposite way. And, like I told you before, we squalor away money. We do all this crazy stuff planning for when we're in our, 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
Live for today, man, while you can do it. Go out and buy a motorcycle. Go out and take those expensive vacations. Or be like me and shop on Amazon every day. That Amazon guy owes his pension to me right now.
I love that. Hey, listen, man, I am a true advocate of that. I think you got to live in the now. I think we worry about the future, we dwell on the past, and nobody focuses on the now. I think the now is important, man, for sure. So let's talk about the now. 32 years with the FDNY, 36 years in the American Fire Service. I mean, you're captain at 176, ladder 176, the Tin House truck. Right? Before that, you served ladder 142, division 13, tower ladder in the Nut House, which is ladder 111, which is another super busy truck. I mean, You're not shying away from work, brother.
No, I've been blessed, man. I've had a worked in great places, and it's been an awesome ride. I started out in ladder 132 in the Crown Heights section of Brooklyn, and I was fortunate enough. Like I said, I went to Rescue 2 at a young age, and I learned a lot there. I had a lot of great mentors when I was in Rescue 2. The bosses were awesome. Pete Lund, Gary Howard, Al Fuentes. They were great guys. And the senior men I had, I mean, I had Bobby LaRocco, Bobby Gallione, who everybody knows, and Bobby's nickname, was the Bear, because when the Bear, swept his paw at you, you did something. And, I still relate Bobby Galleone's stories to my guys today. When you crack down on somebody, you do something. I tell them, you know what? I said, I learned the same lesson many years ago. And the guy that I looked at with, that ugly anger look in your eyes, 10 years later, I said, hey, dude, I understand what you did. And they said, yeah, I knew you'd get it. I did the same thing. It's it's just a natural progression in the fire service, learning from our senior mentors. We might not like it at the time, but down the line, we realized they were, all they were doing, just like a parent, was guiding us in the right direction.
Those senior mentors are more important than ever now, though. You grew up, 32 years riding, the back step, the front seat in the FDNY, working with some of the characters of the FDNY that are guys that, quote unquote, legends of the job, right? Guys that have, put the job first. They brought tremendous efforts on behalf of the fire service and the FDNY to the forefront. And you learned under those guys, right? I mean, we need people like that today too, no?
Yeah. It was a blessing. And, and people will always say to you, the fire service, it's not the same as it used to be. You know what? 40 years ago, guys were saying the same thing back then.
Yeah.
You know what? It's ever changing, and, there were the war years in the 70s. Well, look now, I mean, e-bike fires. I mean, it's, e-bikes, lithium ion batteries. I mean, look at the fire duty in the country today, and fires are just different today. And that's what, guys have to understand, Don't compare to the fires in the 70s. That was a different type of fire. I mean, and they went to lots of them. But the fires today, you got to be on your A game. I mean, stuff is ever changing around us, and understanding ventilation principles. And I always love when you get some student in the class and guys like, wow, Cap, this isn't the way we do it. And it's like, well, with your 3 years on the job, how do you do it, bro? Tell me. It's hey, I'm all into going in and moving in with the line and taking windows, but that's great if you got that line behind you. But, if the engine's out at the supermarket and you're in the truck and you've got reported people trapped, taking windows is not the way to, to save that person's life. You got to be coordinated.
I love that. And that just goes to, I mean, you 36 years in the fire service, almost 40 years in the fire service, brother.
Don't make me, I'm not old. I started really young, bro.
No, listen, man, you look fantastic. And I know you're young. You still got plenty left in the tank. And I know that. But my point is, though, is I have to believe that you have seen unbelievable change in the fireground over those years.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I can think back of, being a new firefighter and, 132 and going in with 3/4 coats and, the leather helmet and your basic gloves and, the OV and your roof position. We used to wear work boots, because so you could get to your position quicker and you could jump fences. And then, the introduction of bunker gear coming along and hoods and, I mean, it's all good stuff. It's all good stuff. It's all bad stuff, because, like I always tell guys with bunker gear, how many of us get, actual formal education in bunker gear? We don't. And, you have to understand how that gear works and the limitations. Everything in this world has limitations. You have to understand that, if not, you're going to put yourself into a position that you're going to get yourself hurt or somebody else hurt trying to come to get you.
How important is it to still be a student of the game, man? Because I know, listen, all these years in, you're sitting, the captain of 176, ladder 176, which is a busy truck. You guys do work there. you're still a student of the game. I mean, PL Vulcan, we're going to hop into one of the OG training companies of the fire service. You guys have been around for a few days now, you know, doing some real specialized teaching and training with some of the biggest names in the industry. But like being a student of the game, you grew up being mentored by incredible people that probably pushed you to be as good as you could possibly be and then want to be better. Being a student, how important is that?
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, I was fortunate as a kid. I lived around the block of a firehouse. I hung out in the firehouse. My pseudo godfather was a lieutenant in Rescue 4 in Queens, and
Wow.
I rode with him on a regular basis. And you know what? I learned so much. And from the firemen during that era, I'm sure you've heard of Mike Milner.
Yeah, of course.
You know, Mike was one of the firemen under the the Duke. If you ever hear John Dillon, the Duke, they talk
absolutely.
about. And these were legendary guys that just had a simple approach to taking care of things. And when we started PL Vulcan years ago, I did teaching with Pete Lund, a couple other guys in Rescue 2. We did teaching with Pete Lund, but Pete didn't start PL Vulcan. That was us, and we did that as a tribute to Pete.
Yeah.
After Pete had passed away. And we were out there teaching. We really didn't have a name for the company. And then when Pete passed away, we said, hey, Pete kind of set the principles for us. And I don't know if you know the relation traditions training is another group. That's why, we always refer to like some of the older groups, the old stooges in the training world.
Right.
We consider ourselves like the 5 families of the mafia. Every couple of months we all talk and get on the same page. And
the way it should be.
Yeah, we did, and we discussed the new companies on the block and what's going on, and and it's good. But there's always with the senior companies that are out there, there's always been a mutual respect.
Yes.
Everybody has their they got their specialty, their thing that they do. But with Pete, Pete's principle was pretty much keep things simple. Get these guys to make pushes down the hallway, but keep it simple. No one wants rocket science. Firemen like simplicity, and that's kind of been the PL Vulcan mantra. I mean, of every class that we do. Whether it's a leadership class in the classroom or man versus machine or rapid intervention. I tell guys when we teach the rapid intervention class, you could show me all these different techniques of people doing push-ups. I mean, half the firemen we know can't do a push-up on their own. They're going to do them with a guy on their back. And then we show them just basic methods. Hey, stick this ladder in the window, or you put this piece of webbing that you carry under somebody. And it's just teaching guys to work smarter, not harder.
Why are we getting away from that?
Because there's so many different people out there introducing tactics, introducing ideas that really aren't street smart. And it's just a shame. It's the whole how do you put it? People looking for a cause to promote. And it's like when the whole thing came out on ventilation. Guys went nuts and they complained. Oh my God, we're changing the fire service. If you go back to the Boston Fire Department back in 1898 in their rules and regulations, it's pretty simple. It says fire attack and ventilation will be coordinated.
Yep.
So what the heck has changed since 1898? It's just it's our whole job should be based on simplicity. I tell people in our lectures all the time, be a student of fatal fire reports, read fatal fire reports.
Yes.
I mean, if you go from Napoleon up to 5-star generals in today's army, guess what they've always based their wars on? The past, what's worked, what hasn't worked. And if you read fatal fire reports, you learn a lot of lessons. One of the most common denominators in fatal fire reports is a failure in fundamentals. Something went wrong with fundamentals. Somebody didn't take a hydrant. Maybe ladders weren't thrown up. Something went wrong. And by no means think that I'm downplaying any incident, but it always comes back to
fundamentals.
Something went wrong.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think the fundamentals get lost. And I think we're getting too fancy with too many people have a different take or a way to teach something, which makes it more intricate and more involved. And I think when we lose the fundamentals and we break down and make it more complicated and take away the simplicity, I mean, I love the simplicity of firefighting because it is really straightforward in most cases, right? When you're doing your quote unquote bread and butter type fire, scenes, right? There is a symphony, there is a choreograph, play at hand that is simple and smart if it's done correctly.
100%. And you always you always hear that phrase when something goes on suddenly and unexpectedly, conditions rapidly
Yes.
changed. I don't agree with that. Conditions changed and we didn't recognize it, or someone around us, at a fire, somebody didn't get to the exposure 3 side or the Charlie side, whichever term you want to use, and we weren't fully informed of what was going on, if that makes sense. Conditions are always going on. I mean, I always joke around in class when we do the lecture thing. I said, you notice your neighbor's wife goes out of the house every night of the week at 6 o'clock to walk the dog. She's got high heels on, makeup. And then, 3 months later, your wife turns around and says, "Oh my God,
I can't
Mary
believe
Jane
it.
and Bob they're getting divorced.
Yeah.
I can't believe it." You can't believe it.
Can't
You fail to recognize the signs. Who
That's
walks
right.
a dog in high heels and, lipstick? Come
I
on.
love that right there is gold. Absolutely.
It's the same thing in the fire service. If you're standing out in front of the building or you're on the fire, if I'm going to the floor above and I hear the engine on the fire floor saying, "Hey, we've got a water issue," then going to the floor above is not the place for me until I know, that, either I have, a refuge area, or I know that line is gonna be there to back us up. We've always got to be monitoring that radio and listening to what's going on and listen to size up from the other brothers and sisters, and, to make our moves.
Yeah, you're very well said. And I think, though, that comes down to the training and back end of it, where we need competent and confidence on the fire ground and instilling that into our people, which goes right back to the upbringing you had in the fire service with mentors that put you on the right path to really understand the importance of the game.
Every run, you come back from a job, or you come back from a pin job, a hearse tool operation. A lot of the senior guys I worked with always say, "Okay, what positions did you have? Where did you go? What did you do?" And then everybody around the table answered. And it wasn't to turn around and have a guy say, "Oh, he's going to find mistakes with what I did." Maybe you did something that somebody else never did before, and maybe the other 5 or 6 of us in a group are going to learn from what you did.
Yeah. Who runs that for you? Is that the senior man that typically runs that in the company, or does that come from the officer down?
It like I said, normally we'll, after a job, we'll sit and talk to senior senior firefighters are great. I mean, they stay on top of the guys. They do stuff, and we sit down, have a cup of coffee, or maybe we'll be in front of the building while everything's fresh in everybody's head, and just basically say, "Hey, how'd you get to the roof? How did you get to the outside vent position? Hey, what did you guys encounter on the inside? Any weird locks? Any type of forcible entry issues? What did you have? And so for us, it works out pretty good. We're able to talk about different positions, talk to the engine. What difficulties did they have getting the line in place?
But you have an environment that allows for your people to talk about their work, right? Like it comes from the top down, where in a company, people have to be comfortable to talk about what they did, because if there is an error or something was done that probably could have been done better, there needs to be an environment that fosters a good conversation and not pointing the finger and blaming. And I think too often we're doing that, no?
Well, I agree with you, just because we're a very ego-driven organization.
Right.
He could have done things better, and we look to punish, and we look to, to say somebody screwed up. I always refer to it when we teach the man versus machine class. I always refer to this guy that lives in his mother's basement. He's got the smoke machine going. He's got Ladder 49 on one TV, Backdraft on the other. He's wearing a leather helmet with every sticker that there is. So. Who is that guy? It's the Facebook firefighter. What does he do? He searches the internet looking for Jeremy Donch or Mark Gregory screwing up at a job.
100%.
And you know what? You could take one picture and maybe see a guy holding a tool the wrong way and say, "Hey, what did that idiot do?" But if you had the collection of pictures and saw step by step, maybe what the guy was doing wasn't so bad. Or maybe they didn't have a certain tool on scene. So they, like we always joke around, impalements, I would never use a circular saw to cut somebody off a fence, but maybe they didn't have anything else. Maybe they didn't have a bandsaw. So if this is all they have, I always tell people, if you're in doubt about something you see on the internet, contact the department. Say, "Hey, I saw this picture up. What's the details behind that? Fill us in. Tell us what you did," because maybe some good will come out of it, rather than what we love to do in the fire service, bash other people.
Yeah, man, there's something to that, and I agree with you 100%. Anybody that's willing to look for the bad out of a still photo or a quick video, and they don't have, or we're not there, they don't have a place to say. And those are people that are getting caught up where they think their opinions and that matter, and it doesn't. It doesn't, you know, but unfortunately, though, that's what gives us a black eye in the game, and it doesn't allow for people to take chance or try something different with the thought that there might be repercussions coming from either their own people or outside people as well.
Right. No, I agree with you, bro. It's everybody has different ways of doing things. You know, you were talking before about the man machine class. Listen, I haven't taken tractors apart. I haven't done certain things in my life. But what do? We teach a class in Nebraska. Somebody in Nebraska teaches me something, and
I love
now
that.
what's my job? To take that information and say,
Yep.
hey, we learned this. We were doing a class one day, and it was funny. We didn't have the right spark plug socket on a snowblower, and we were trying to manipulate it. And guy said, "Hey, watch this!" And he took the socket and he whacked the ceramic head off the socket. I mean, off the spark plug, and said, "Boom!" He says, "This is how we do it in the auto shop." And I was like, you know what?
I love that.
Trick of the trade from a guy who does this every day. It's just like, me being in my volunteer department and maybe showing a guy who's an auto mechanic, a better way of getting the Halligan into a door.
That's
we
right.
do this all the time. Share that knowledge, share those skill sets with others so that they can benefit from it.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest part, right? I mean, wherever we come from, whatever walk of life we're in, somebody's always going to know something a little bit more about something than I am. You got to be open-minded and willing to listen and sit back and learn. And that goes to that whole question I posed to you before about being a student of the game.
Definitely. I mean, every day we should be learning. In life, we learn. I tell guys when we do the whole leadership thing, how many of us have been home, your kid does something stupid, and the first thing you do is the hand comes out, you whack the kid in the back of the head, right?
Yep.
And you're like, you knucklehead. Then you get in the car and you're driving to work and you say to yourself, there's probably a better way to handle that.
Yep.
That's you got to think about that. My father did 46 years in the FDNY, and he got out. He was an assistant commissioner, and he always said to me, he said, one lesson you learn about leadership is, he says, unless you know the answer 100%, he says, you making a decision in the firehouse, or or in the office setting, he says, tell the person, hey, I'll get right back to you on that. Think about all the different aspects. If you don't need to fire off an answer in 10 seconds on the fire ground, different story. But something comes up. You got to, all right, let's think about this for a second. There might be a better approach. And it's the same thing. It works at home. The same philosophy works at home with your family.
This episode's brought to you by Teledyne FLIR. Teledyne FLIR is the originator and creator of thermal imaging technology. In 2013, FLIR launched the K-Series camera for the public safety sector, in particular firefighting. They have created cameras over the last 10 years for every position on the fire ground. From tactical to situational, their cameras help us make the right decisions on the fire ground. So check out Teledyne FLIR, check out their product offerings, and engage them on their social media and ask them for more information and education in regards to their product. Teledyne FLIR is producing one of the best cameras on the market, and they're a proud sponsor and partner of the National Fire Radio podcast. So go over to www.flir.com and look up the public safety file, and you'll find the latest offerings from Teledyne. No, I love that. But you did draw a distinction there about the fire ground. And I think that is a super important point, though, in that, right? Is that on the fire ground, we need to make decisions, and we need to make decisions based upon the information at hand against your training and understanding, right? And we have to make decisions.
Big time. But you know what? The decisions have to be based on information received.
That's right.
So you're going to a box, you hear the dispatcher filling it out, or maybe there's SIDS information, which we have in the city, critical incident dispatch info. You can read that as you go. But now that company gives the size up, and you got that, the Facebook firefighters in the basement, and he's going, yes, here it comes. Here comes the 1075. And all you hear is 1075 the box. All right. Well, that officer or that driver did me a disservice if I'm coming in as the second due engine or the second due truck, because I don't know what's burning. I don't know where the fire is. In New York, for just say a private dwelling fire, we've got different positionings truck company wise for a peaked roof or a flat roof. You tell me fires on the top floor of a peaked roof private dwelling. Well, it changes the positioning of my company, where the outside team's going to go, what we're going to do. You tell me that it's a six-story tenement and the fire's on the top floor. Well, it changes the way we're going to operate,
Sure.
what tools we're going to bring. And, size up is critical. Even automatic alarms. I try to get it into the guys in my volunteer department. Pull up on scene and just give that simple report. I've got a two-story cape. Nothing showing at this time. Investigating. I don't.
Yep.
And just give that basic report. So now the truck company knows, hey, it's a two-story. We're gonna set up. We're gonna be in position. If it's a one-story ranch, I don't need a 75-foot tower ladder in front.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and I think that's absolutely critical. And again, it goes to, mapping and blueprinting your experience and understanding, and I think that's the fun part about it. And for you, over all these years, I mean, God, I can only imagine the experiences, the storytelling, the laughter, the tears that you've had along the way. But I mean, riding in some of the busiest companies in the city and so on. I mean, that's got to be a lot of fun for you, paying that forward. The mentors you had. Right? Do you find yourself in that mentor position now? Unknowingly, it just happens overnight.
It does, and it's humbling. Guys look up to places you worked and things that you did, and it's I had a lot of great mentors from
Sure.
being a firefighter. I mean, even when I was as a lieutenant to a captain, I've worked with tremendous people that it could be a firefighter that changes a decision you make or helps you make a better call on something.
Love that.
And it's a culmination of great people, and I've been super fortunate to work with some outstanding people, and I've seen some people that aren't so outstanding. I'm not going to make everything all roses and daisies.
Sure.
But you learn to say, you know what, that guy there, I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. We talk about mentorship, but there's also bad mentors too, and they help us progress forward as well.
Oh, 100%. And, and the lesson we got to learn, it's just like a bad parent. It's like that guy at the baseball game that every call the umpire makes, screaming from the stands. You got to say, you see this guy in the fire ground, you got to say, I don't want to be like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's not the guy I want to emulate by any means. So let's talk. Yeah, go ahead.
When we become captains in the FDNY, they put you through a command course. And I always like to tell the guys, like in the leadership classes we teach, we went out, they have you go out and you do ride-alongs, and all the chiefs are great, and they sit in the back of the car. It's basically like buffing for the day. You go, and one day I rode with this one chief out in the 5-0 battalion, Chief Paul Tauber, and get there, and the guy says, hop in the front seat. I'm looking at him like, what? I'm like, I'm used to just riding in the back, He said, no, hop in the front seat. He says, you're in charge today. I'm like, all right. So we go on a couple of BS runs, nothing crazy. So we get a phone alarm for a fire, and he taps me on the shoulder as we're going, and he hands me a pack of gum. And I'm like, what's this for? He said, I'll explain later. He said, put some gum in your mouth. I'm like, all right. So we're going, listening to this phone alarm, and ended up it wasn't much. But I said to him afterwards, I said, so, hey, what's up with the gum? He said, lesson I learned years ago. He says, you put the gum in your mouth, you're chewing, you got to talk on a radio. He says, what do you got to do? I said, stop chewing, take the gum out of your mouth. He said, yeah. He says, that'll give you a second or two to think. And I always took that from him. I thought that was as silly or as crazy as that sound. It's a great way to think. We want to get on that radio. We want to scream 1075 or work in fire. And sometimes you just got to be cool hand Luke and say, all right, we got this. Yeah, fire's blowing out 3 windows, but let's get the information out to the people so they know what they're dealing with when they get here.
I love that, man. That is cool. I've never heard the gum trick before. I absolutely love that. I think it makes a lot of sense. And it goes right to that conversation. I mean, that's the thing. I've talked to people where they're like, I like to go back and listen to my tapes. After the fire, I'll ask dispatch to pull the tape for me so I can analyze and hear how I sounded, what I could do better, or my reports clear and concise. I mean, all important things, but I love those little tips, man. They go a long way.
Yeah. And I tell you, you pick up things. Yeah, Jay Bresler, he's a lieutenant in Squad 252. Was a firefighter and rescue too. He teaches a leadership class, and they talk a lot about like auditory exclusion. In the beginning when it first came out, you're like, this auditory exclusion stuff. I don't know if I buy into it. But I tell you what, I've gone to a couple of jobs, and when your heart rate gets up from stress,
and
you listen to those tapes later on. there's a lot of times you say the first thing that goes, they say with with stress is your hearing. And it's like you sit there and go, I didn't hear this, or maybe I didn't hear that.
Yep.
And so, and you learned to control yourself and say, hey, you know what? I gotta control my stress to be able to listen to what's going on to keep the people safe.
Yeah, so much to that, and I couldn't agree with you more. And I think also too, though, it comes with experience. You need more experience. You need to immerse yourself into it, being able to get involved and be a part of, talking and being on the radio as much as you can, so that you get an understanding of how the game is played. Right? I mean, you need reps. You need experience.
Well, that's the thing. There's being on the radio and there's having diarrhea of the mouth.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Two totally different areas. But even for the guys that maybe aren't going to fires every day. I mean, not that any of us are really going to fires every day anymore. It's just when you go to that automatic alarm, you go to that car fire or the pin job. It's just muscle memory.
Yes.
Get in the habit. If you're doing this all the time, it becomes second nature. If you only have a fire face, well, you're not putting that face on that often. It's not gonna, it's not gonna work. Things are gonna fall through the cracks. But if you have a routine that you do all the time, I mean, again, habits. Every firefighter's got one. I go to work. I know in the rig, I can be blindfolded. I know my thermal camera is in front of me. My hood is on the dashboard. My helmet's to the left of me. I mean, we are all creatures of muscle memory. And if somebody comes in that rig and moves things around, what does it do to you? It throws you off it throws you off your A game. I mean, there's every firefighter that's a driven individual has a habit that they follow every day.
Yeah, no, very well said. And I think, that's one thing I could stress to anybody listening to this is get into that routine. Have your gear set up the same way every single time so that it's muscle memory. I couldn't agree with you more, Cap, on that for sure. Talk to me a little bit about PL Vulcan. Kind of exciting. You guys, like I alluded to it before, you gave us a little backstory with Peter Lund and the inspiration that he was and so on. But, you guys have people all over the country. You're doing a lot of teaching and training. You were just out at FDIC doing a lecture and a hot class. Your Man vs. Machine is probably one of the most popular courses you guys probably offer, which is a super narrow product offering when it comes to training.
Right.
Not everybody can teach that. I think that you guys are certainly known for that discipline. Where did that all come about?
Well, I mean, the first thing is the staffing. We are incredibly blessed in PL Vulcan to have the staff that we have.
Right.
We have guys from all walks of life. Listen, we could have 20 New York City firefighters working for the company. That's not doing us any good because you know what? The guy from Podunk, West Virginia that rides with 3 people on a rig is, and I don't mean it with any disrespect, he's going to say, these guys do things totally different than me.
Correct.
We have guys from Podunk. We have guys from all over that are super skilled, super crafted, and they want to share their experiences. A lot of our guys, we also teach a RIT program. A lot of our guys have been involved in either Maydays or actual firefighter fatalities. And we try to explain to students, listen, it's great that you learn this technique, and that is awesome. But in the real world, that's not going to work. And they go, well, why not? Well, because we've been down that road. Unfortunately, we've, been in the situation where we've had to carry a brother or two out of a building. We know it's not practical. It's not really going to work. And, everything we do is street smart and super simple. So we've been blessed with the crew that we have. The guys travel all around. Last weekend, we had 4 crews out on the road, and it's good. I think another big thing besides having great instructors is having personal instructors. Anybody could come in and be that guy that people want to go, oh, this guy's from FDNY or Chicago or whatever. How about this is Jim, and he's going to show us something, and he's going to learn from you. And I think firefighters warm up to somebody when you come to a place and the guy educates you on something. You say, hey, I want to tell you a story we had. And say, hey, how did it work, brother? What did you do? Help us out. I think, and our guys are great with that. I always get compliments on, hey, the instructors were so open-minded and they weren't set in one way. I mean, that's how we all learn. And, that's how we're able to, basically it's like we're spreading the gospel, man. We go all around the country and somebody gives us just a different take on it. So we say, hey, let's throw it in. Not every personality is going to buy one way of doing something.
Where did the hook for training come in for you? Like, was training always important to you, even in the early days with the mentorship that you were receiving from the different companies and then going in the SOC and so on? Like, was training always at your forefront?
I worked with a lot of super firefighters. Like I said, when I started out in 132, we had guys that went to training. We had this one guy, Keith Lachlan, was a big forcible entry guy. Rescue 2, of course, we would always be out doing something during the day. And I
Yeah.
worked with firefighters. I worked with, I mean, great guys. Davey Van Vorst, Terry Hatton. I mean, guys that were into simplicity. Pete Martin, who passed away in the trade center.
Mm.
He was one of my senior firefighters in Rescue 2, and I remember him saying to me one day, "Don't consider yourself a rescue firefighter until you have probably about 5 years in the company." And at first, I looked at him like, "What? What do you mean by that?"
Right.
And then I'll never forget, I was operating at an incident, and everything came like second nature. What tools to grab, what to do, and I remembered what he said, and it was so true. Just because you're wearing that blue patch on your helmet or the 176 on your doesn't mean that you're in that position.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes a lot of sense. And then
So
one day it just clicks, right? You go, that's what he meant.
it's like when you could sit there all day and play around with your car in the driveway, and then all of a sudden you bring it to a repair shop, and the guy just takes one quick look and says, "Yeah, it's this," and you're like,
"Yeah, that's right.
I could have figured that out too. Why didn't I think of that?" Because this guy's repetition. He's been doing it. He understands what's going on.
That's that self-awareness, though, right? Like when you take ownership of who you are, you take ownership of your career, whether a volunteer or career, you take ownership of the type of firefighter you want to be. Then you have to be self-aware. And I think that that's really the conversation. It's like the guy that's been there for 2 years and acts like he's been there for 30 years. That must have been quite a moment for you, though, that aha moment where everything clicked on that one run and you go, now I know exactly what he meant.
And at first, of course, the hair on the back of your neck stands up.
Of course.
How dare you, and listen, I made my share of bumbleheaded mistakes in my career.
We all have.
Just like every other guy. But I had good guys that, gave you a smack in the back of the head and just were like, "Hey," and they did it for a reason. It's just like your dad. They want to see you succeed, because I always tell my guys, remember one thing: nobody ever says, "Hey, did you see what Jeremy did last night at that fire?" No, they always say, "Hey, did you see what the guy from 176 did?" And it labels the entire company. And that's, when you're labeling the company, I want it labeled in a good way. And, my volunteer department, any other places I've worked, that's what we want. We want people to walk away and go, "Wow, those guys were on the ball, man. What they did last night, or how they cut that person out of the car, it was flawless. Unbelievable."
Yeah, I mean, that pride factor, right? I mean, talk to me a little bit about that, whether volunteer or definitely in your career companies, though, there is a tremendous pride value that you have to bring to the table, and that you protect the integrity. Like, being a captain of Ladder 176, I mean, there's a reputation of that company that comes long before you got there, right? So subscribing to that and then knowing the importance of maintaining that reputation, right? It's important, no?
Yeah, well, 176 is a fairly young company. I mean, we were only formed 50 years ago. It was a what they call a tactical control unit that turned into a truck company because the neighborhood with the fire duty, and they started out with bare bones as far as tools, built a company, and then you had guys like John Vigiano, who again was one of my childhood mentors.
Wow.
And the Vig had a certain way of doing things, and he was very methodical, very organized. And even when Vig was passing away from cancer, I would go talk to him, because I was now the captain of 176, and Vig had a certain he still had basically a message he wanted spread. And I remember sitting with him one day. He was, in his hospital bed, and he said, "You need to do this, kid, and this kid." He would either call you kid or young man.
Yeah.
He'd go like, "Young man, this is the way you do this." And then he'd go, "And now I'm tired." And that was like, whoop, okay, we're done for the day. He just gave me 6 good tidbits.
Wow.
And he was, Vig was great. I mean, besides, he's legendary, Rescue 2, 103 firefighter, but he brought a lot of he basically brought a lot of great things to 176, and that attitude's alive today. But the attitude is because we've had great officers, great senior firefighters, and great guys in the company that keep that tradition alive. And I think whether you volunteer, paid, busy, or slow, listen, you could be in the slowest company on the job, but it could be a great place to be in as long as the morale is good.
Yeah.
It's it's unfortunate if you live in Daisyland, New York, and you're not that busy. It doesn't mean that your fire department sucks. You could have a great fire department. You have to have guys that want to train and want to be into it. But you've got to have that esprit de corps type of attitude.
I love that, man. Jesus, that's unbelievable. I'm listening to the people that inspired you, and I'm just in awe of who you had the access to. And it's just powerful, man. Like, I think about that, and I think about all those great leaders that you got to sit with, learn from, ride with, and so on. And these are people that have really molded and shaped the FDNY, not just the FDNY, but also the fire service too, right? Do you ever look back at that and just count your blessings and just, I mean, it's one of those moments. I know for me, every once in a while I have these nostalgia moments where I go, that was cool. Like that, you know what I'm saying?
All the time. I count my blessings all the time. I'm extremely blessed to have ridden with bosses that I've ridden with as a kid, learned the way that they operated. I mean, they treated me like a second father. I mean, like I said, I mentioned before about John Dillon from Rescue 4. I mean, the Duke was incredible. I mean, he was literally my second father. I mean, he would pick me up at my house when I was, a young kid, bring me to the firehouse, make sure I got back home, and and I learned so much, to the point that his own sons didn't get on the job, and he reserved his badge for me. I had his firefighter badge for my entire career. So to me, that was an honor.
Wow. Well, let me ask. I mean, so these are guys that invested in you. Right? Like, I think about that today, and I'm like, man, I really hope that, like, we're doing the fire service a service by still promoting, like, young kids and bringing them around and educating them. And those guys took time to spend with you because they saw something in you. Right? They look at the job and they 100%. Say, we want to protect the integrity of this job. We want to bring people in and expose people to this job, this career that means everything to them. And they chose to focus on you. And I hope that we're doing that today with other people. Like, I hope that we're focusing. I think about myself and I'm like, am I focusing enough on a young kid that I should be? Like, I don't think I am. I think I'm dropping the ball there.
No, I disagree. I mean, I look at this podcast. How many people listen day in and day out, and how many people do you think that you've made an impact on? Listen, you could be doing a lot of other things at 11:30 in the morning, on a Monday, and here you are talking to somebody and getting some pointers that, again, it's like gospel. Someone's spreading the word, and somebody else picks up on it and says, "Hey, this is good stuff, man.
I appreciate
maybe we should try this, and we should try this here." And I think what we all try to do is good. I was fortunate enough to work and ride as a kid with some fantastic bosses. But you know what? Again, you could go to Chicago, Prince George's County, Maryland, and there's great firefighters everywhere in this country, everywhere in the world. And just because they don't have that tag FDNY, doesn't mean they're not a great firefighter or a great mentor. There's a lot of good people out there, that can change a firefighter's career, young and old.
Yeah, listen, man, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. It was, part of starting National Fire Radio was to do something more to give back, right? I'm just thinking about in my own firehouse, am I doing enough, or am I leaving after runs too quick or not spending enough time with guys? Like the other night, perfect example, we just had a construction dumpster on fire in the driveway of a new home under construction. And it was like, I was watching the guys on the line. They stretched the bumper line inch and 3/4, and I'm watching the kid on the nozzle, and I'm watching the backup man, and I'm like, these guys need more work. And I went over and took the time to, I said, let's, this is a practice fire, man. So I'm like, let's do better here, but we need to do that.
Not to cut you off.
No,
there,
do it.
And that's where the right and the wrong come in. So you could be that guy that goes, you realize you guys are screwing us all up, right?
Yeah,
you're
right.
Realize, and then what happens? The hair stands up in the back of the neck. They look at you and you get the attitude. Or you could say, hey, you know what? I was just out in FDIC. Hey, I want to show you. I learned this pretty cool tactic the other day about dumpster fires. You probably never went to a dumpster fire class, but you know what? Now you show them, hey, keep the nozzle a foot out ahead of you. Do this, do that.
Yeah.
And they'll buy into it. Even in my own volunteer department, we're blessed. We've got quite a large amount of FDNY guys out here on the east end of Long Island. And I could go into my department and say something to somebody and they'll look at me because it's Mark. He's always here. You could come in and teach the same exact topic, and somebody go,
Yeah.
"Oh my God, did you
Right.
see what Jeremy
Yeah,
Dodge did?
right.
He taught us this."
Yeah. Our biggest critics are the guys that we're with every day, right? Like, you know,
100. We take them for granted.
yeah, we do. Absolutely. And in fact, sometimes we even push them to the side and we don't even allow them to be a part of the conversation. We don't value what they can bring to the table for us.
100%, bro. 100%.
Yeah. I mean, I want to challenge anybody listening to this episode, though, going forward, that if you don't think you're giving enough back, or you don't think that you're mentoring or helping, you know, craft the next generation, then step up, man, because we need leaders and we need people to work with the guys that are coming in. I've seen too many kids flounder through their first couple of years because nobody committed to them and nobody offered to do extra and go above and beyond. And, you know, that's the time where we got to do our part, man, as the fire service, to promote our own.
Well, you know, it all goes back to family and how how you were raised, things that you do at home. Like, I love walking in the kitchen and everybody's on their cell phone. You know, you're going to sit down to eat dinner and everybody's on their cell phone. And, you know, you say, back home, Jeremy, would you sit at the kitchen table and eat dinner with your family and be on your cell phone? And the answer
Right.
is no.
Right.
Then why are you doing it here?
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe learn that, you know, Jeremy's wife has an issue going on at home.
Yeah, it's so important.
Mark likes to buy stuff at Amazon. The other thing is on the rig too. We're on the rig and guys are on their phone. You're in your first due area and you're not even paying attention to maybe new buildings that are being put up or things that are going on. But we're more concerned about getting a TikTok picture out, you know, making some stupid face, you know, and it's like, you know, social media and just the times today, you know, we need to get back to simplicity. Walking into the supermarket and just saying to the new guy, hey, at 3 a.m., if you had these roll downs were in place, how would you get in? What would you do? Do you know what truss construction looks like? Look over your head right now, right?
Yeah.
That's what a parallel court. You don't have to do hour-long drills. Sometimes if you just do, you know, base hits, they win games. And that's, you know, in the training mindset, that's what you got to do too.
I'm writing that down. Base hits win games. That's absolutely. Base hits win games. I love it. So what's next for Mark Gregory, man? I mean, you know, we've been going for about 45 minutes now on the episode. We like to keep it to an hour. Give me what's next for you. Next chapter? Anything exciting? Something with PL? What are we doing?
Summer is coming.
You are a summer guy. Cigar in a beach chair.
I'm a cigar in a beach chair. So you'll definitely see my token photo out there. Cigar in a beach chair. I do like my beach. Like I said, live in basically a resort community. So
I love that.
I think I told you before. I got back in as a fire chief after 36 years in the volunteer fires. That's what the heck was I thinking? But I love it. We have great people here, and it's one of those things when you stand up at a meeting and you say, "Hey, we need to make change." Be prepared because people say, "Well, are you willing to make the change?" And you know, it's good. So try to keep busy with that.
I know your family is super important to you as well, right? And
yes, I got two kids, 2 dogs, and you know, they're. I would like to think that they're all spoiled as hell.
Well, yes, right? I mean, listen, my kids too, and that's very important to me, yet giving them the foundation for which they got to learn on their own as well. But, man, I love spoiling my kids, but I spoil them in a way that I like to think is the right way, you know, because I want to shower them with love.
100%. So my, you know, my son's been, you know, rodding. He's been in the fire service. I mean, he's 22 years old. He just got in as a lieutenant in Freeport.
Oh, cool.
216, and you know, it's a busy shop. The guys are into it there, and you know, I always try to, you know, tell him too. You know, he'll come and he'll give me, you know, hey, the problems and dilemmas and different things going on, and I like to mentor him and give him, hey, this is the way you should be doing it, or you should be thinking about doing it. And you know, sometimes we all have to fall, we all have to brush off our knees to learn that, you know, there are different ways of handling things, or you know, to, you know, deal with certain situations. So you know. It's all good stuff.
Is it? You enjoy watching him come up in the fire service?
I do. I'm very proud of both my kids. So you know, my son's doing that. He's in EMS. You know, hopefully he's going to get on the FDNY, and I'll stay around long enough to get to watch him and maybe crawl down a hallway with him. And then I've got a daughter who just got her master's degree in education.
Fantastic.
And she's doing special ed with kids, and you know, she's a very talented, gifted individual. So like I said, I've been really blessed. I can't complain. And the home, you know, home life is important, man. And you know, a lot of us have demons, different things going on in the world. And I always tell guys, when you go into that firehouse, put your cell phone in your locker and enjoy the show. You're there for 24 hours. There is no better place, no better clown show in the world to be than in a firehouse, because the jackassery that we can get away with and that we do to each other, you know what, can totally change your mindset and, bring you back down to realize just how blessed we are to be firefighters and, to have that support network that we do have.
I'm writing that down. That was freaking awesome. Put your cell phone in your locker and enjoy the show. That right there, brother. We're gonna wrap right on that. Captain Mark Gregory, you're a rock star, brother. I always enjoy talking with you.
Dude, always a pleasure. We got to do a cigar, and
we're gonna do that. I'm coming out
to do an interview on the beach.
We're gonna do it this summer. We're coming out. I want to see your volunteer shop. I want to see what you're doing out there because I've heard good things too. And I would love to get out there and see it firsthand, and then plant my feet in the sand because that's where I belong as well. And I'd love to do it, man. But thanks for joining me today. This was a nice catch up. You've been on the show before a while back, and it was just nice to regroup and have you back on, man. But I always enjoy talking with you, and I wish you nothing but absolute success with what's next for you in the job, and as well as with PL Vulcan, your family, and everything else, man. It means the world. Thank you.
I appreciate it, bro. And like I said, stay safe, and it's to everybody out there. PL Vulcan.
I love it, brother.
Everest machine. You love it.
I love it. Stay right here. I'm just going to sign off the podcast. I'm going to come right back to you, okay?
You got it, brother. Take care.
Cool. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Another fantastic episode of the National Fire Radio Podcast. Mark Gregory out of the FDNY, as well as PL Vulcan. If you're not familiar with it, look them up on social media. Look them up on their website, PL Vulcan. They are offering top shelf training, one of the OG training companies that have been around a very long time with tried and true methodology and classes. He's changed in the fire service, and they're doing great things. Thanks for tuning in. I do appreciate the community that we've created, and the National Fire Radio community is everything to me, and I appreciate you for joining us again for another episode. Take this conversation, take it back to the firehouse and talk about it, because when we talk about the job, we're making the job better. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you at the next one. Jeremy, National Fire Radio.